The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a financial planning practice serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Fed15 podcast presented by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we'll discuss the latest news and info that feds need to know in 15 minutes-ish, sometimes less, most of the time more. Whether you are a seasoned federal employee or whether you are just starting out in your career, Fed15 has got you covered. So grab your coffee, grab your zero-calorie salted caramel Zevia. I'm like addicted to these things lately. And kick back. Fed15 has got you covered. It's really good. You should check these out. They're on Amazon. We'll tell you what you need to know, but might have missed in the federal space. Of course, we are your hosts. I am Katelyn Murray, and I am joined by Mr. Dan Sipe, both of us in black today. Folks, I really hope that we're wrong in the future when this airs. But currently, as of the date of recording of this episode, the government shutdown is still in effect, and we are very much hoping for a resolution there so that we can keep not only feds employed.
Pass a flippin' CR.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only keep the feds employed and keep you guys paid, but also keep our critical benefits systems up and running. So we have a really interesting episode today. So up top, I want to tell you about two really cool articles that are on the blog this week. We've got an article about possible tax law extensions and what those can mean for the TSP, sort of looking at trends in 401k plans, the 401k is essentially the private sector version of the TSP. It's an employer-sponsored retirement plan. And there are some changes there with 401k plans, and that could predict some changes with TSP. So kind of a forward-looking article there. And then we've got another article on OPM's retirement backlog. So timing tips for feds who are looking to retire, looking to submit their information.
Yes, and as of right now, 7,000 of our closest friends have read that in the last 7 days, Katelyn.
Yeah. Yes. I figured that would be a pretty popular topic. It is a big question that we're getting in a lot of our financial planning meetings. So wanted to make sure that we keep you guys informed there. So two pretty big deal articles this week. One looking a little further ahead, one a little more centered in our current situation with the retirement backlog. Be sure you hit our blog to hit those articles because we're not talking about them this week.
But we have a meaty topic.
I love it, Dan. We absolutely have a meaty topic for today's episode. So we have another very special guest with us this week. We're getting very spoiled this month on the Fed15 with special Fed guests. We have Kevin Gash from Maryland Brat Butcher Co, formerly Plan B Sausages, joining us. Their slogan really sums it up, folks. Old world style, crafted in Maryland, inspired by global street food. So Kevin is joining us today, and we're going to talk a little bit about his company, which I believe is based out of Rockville, Maryland, like all good things are. Also, where Serving Those Who Serve is based. And we're just going to talk a bit about, Kevin, your company, your recent pivot from federal service. You are yet another Fed who experienced a transition in 2025, and we want to hear all about it. So welcome to the Fed15.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Love to talk about sausages.
So Kevin, we'll talk a teeny bit about you here. So you had service on the Hill, you had service with AID. So all in all, serving the public trust in one fashion or another, about 20 years. Is that correct?
More than that. Yeah. I mean, up until I was almost 50 years old. So from the time I graduated college, within a few months working for my local congressman, all the way until I was 50, with a few breaks in there to work in international affairs but mostly related to U.S. government. So,
gotcha. And in one of the interviews, you mentioned that you lived in Germany as a child. Tell us about that.
Well, aid is an interesting place because I'd say well over half the people are immigrants, some recent immigrants or their parents are immigrants, so they're fluent in languages and cultures from around the world. A few are Peace Corps. I sort of felt like I was one of those, except like my parents weren't from like a cool place. They I'd be like, oh, my mom's an immigrant. And then they'd be like, oh, they'd kind of look and like, try and feel it out. I wonder where he's from, a cool place. And I'd be like, yeah, Germany. Dad was a GI, married a local girl. And they'd be like, oh, okay. Not as exotic. So, but yeah, that was my background. I got to spend a good part of my childhood over there eating real sausages. And I don't know, I just found myself in the butcher shops because guess what? As a cute little kid, those old ladies in the butcher shops would always cut equivalent of bologna, like chunks of bologna and give you. And I just always end up there. So
very cool. Well, and actually, speaking of kind of your childhood in Germany, I mean, you've got a flavor of sausage called the Rhineland bratwurst. You've also got other flavors like the DC inspired half smoke, the Thai chicken currywurst, which, by the way, I think sounds delicious, and the Maryland fennel sausage. So, tell us a bit about how your history and your travels have influenced your flavor profile of your sausages.
Well, working for USAID, I end up in a lot of really interesting places. And to add to that, I would always find my way into the local bazaar or market whenever I could. And I was I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I was fascinated with how the butchers cut meat and what they did with it. I found in a lot of places, particularly in Central Asia, what we consider high quality, high end cuts of say a cow or, well, not so much a hog would just sort of get thrown in with everything else. I'd be like, whoa, that's a prime rib right there, And for a brief bit, my brother-in-law, my wife is from Kyrgyzstan, so I did spend a lot of time in Central Asia, had a small butcher shop and I helped guide him to a few of the good cuts and showed him how to make a few fun things. So including corned beef. And they really liked that. They had never realized you could make beef so tender without boiling it for hours. So learning how to brine it. And so kind of got into it like that and just the sort of different spicing mixtures. So beyond just what you get in Germany.
Well, full disclosure, Kevin, owing to a minor, and I do mean minor, a health scare about 3 years ago, I'm a recovering carnivore. So I'm plant-based. So I live vicariously through my family members. And Katelyn, there's a couple other flavors there that I know I'll be placing orders for, hopefully be able to get them in time for Thanksgiving. Definitely the smoked duck sausage, the chicken and apple sausage, and smoked chorizo. So I'll be getting my order in today, Kevin. So hopefully I got a shot.
You might have to wait one more Thanksgiving until I actually properly open up the butcher shop. So that's the next step.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Alrighty.
I know
so can't make the special order yet.
I know the smoked duck sausage sounds delicious.
All over it.
Yeah, we shouldn't have planned this close to lunch.
Now I can explain to Miss Mary I'm not coming home with it.
Well, so obviously, part of why we wanted to have you on the podcast, Kevin, is not only are you obviously taking the world of sausage by storm, you are also a Fed, right? And you've had this kind of recent career change, and you've talked a lot. You've been very open about this being a lasting change for you, not just a post-layoff pivot. So I'm curious how your definition of success has evolved now that you're building something that's totally your own.
Yeah, it's a much different world. I mean, when, I was in the government, it was so much of a team effort. It was a team effort. You felt like, even in the aid world, you were connected to what folks obviously in diplomacy were doing and defense, in Congress, and every little success, was shared with, 50,000 other people. And now it's just me and some of the young people that work for me, my wife, my kids who also work with me. I really, in some ways, feel like I work for my wife. So she's
Smart
in charge
man.
of large bits of it. So, and provides advice. So it's a much smaller team. It's a much closer team. But yeah, I mean, I don't also have to give credit to elected officials, which is kind of nice. I get a little tired of doing that. I mean, yes, through the stroke of a pen might be able to give us some money that we needed, but you felt like so much of the credit had to be given upward, instead the people that really did the work, particularly when you're overseas and people are putting their lives at risk to do a lot of this work. You don't sort of have to, I'd like to thank, this member of Congress and, who I know at the end of the day just signed their pen to it. So I was a former congressional staffer, and it's just me, my family, a few friends, and putting it all together. So
wow,
the rewards are a little closer home.
Yeah. Are there any kind of tie-overs or lessons or maybe habits that you picked up from your time as a Fed that have kind of carried over into running your own business? Or, interestingly, and this is a little spicy question, are there things that you had to unlearn when you became your own boss? Both sides of the coin.
So I had to unlearn when I got to do a media. I don't need, a media invite. I don't need to clear it with anybody. I don't need to put together talking points. I just get on the phone and start talking about sausage.
Yeah.
So I had to unlearn that, and I can actually be who I am. I think, as a federal employee, you definitely feel that there are just strict limits on who you are. But I think that there's a lot of really, useful things that I learned even at, 50 and so many years of this work and doing something radically different. For example, I had to understand the processes of working with the health department to get cleared, get my recipes cleared. There's a thing called hazardous analysis and critical control point plan that I have to put together. I'm going to keep my place clean, how I prepare my sausages according to time, temperature, etc. Something I had no idea about because I didn't even work in the health field. And so I had to learn something new, but I had to learn a process that, abided by government, policies, rules. And so for me, it was a lot more helpful. When I talk to people that have gotten into this business from the outside, they're like, oh, there's so much bureaucracy. There's so many different layers and rules. It doesn't make sense. They're just slowing down the process. The health department's my enemy. I actually don't see it like that. It's all very logical, and it's there for a reason to keep people safe. Because honestly, what I'm doing, if I do it wrong, I could really make people sick or even worse. And so, that really actually helped me quite a bit, that I don't see it as necessarily, I see it as an opportunity to learn rather than sit there and, be negative about the process. So, and again, I think it's all very logical. I have some very interesting conversations with the health inspectors. So
great insight.
Yeah. Yeah, true. I didn't think about how the local government kind of, or I guess the state level, the health department would kind of impact, and how that could be helpful to have a little bit more insight there. So
on the other hand, I can also be kind of sharp in my critiques, with the local government, because, for example, there are processes where, that you really feel like they're looking at an opportunity to just charge a fee, but you're not really providing anything. They're lacking that customer base. My work, in governance in USAID, a part of that was actually to remove some and streamline, some of the regulations and streamline some of the processes. So for me, it's interesting to be on the other end of it and now actually observe these. Like, really, why do I have to use a fax machine to send you this document? Why do I need to send a check in, the year 2025, when we can do an electronic payment in a matter of seconds? I've seen a few of those with some of the jurisdictions, and it's like, oh, come on, you need to modernize, especially in the capital region.
For sure. Yeah, no, definitely. Well, so you've talked a lot about, in other interviews that we've seen you in and kind of your day-to-day work, you've talked a lot about how for you, this shift with, everything that's kind of going on in the federal government, it was sort of a door that opened up a new chapter for you. And you've said kind of famously that, you wish that you'd made this transition when you were 30 as opposed to when you were 50. And I was wondering if you could speak on just a bit for the Fed who's listening to this, who might be feeling a bit restless or who's wondering if there is a next chapter out there for them. What would you say to that person? And what through your journey have you learned about risk and reinvention and doing work that seems to you seem to be really passionate about?
Yeah. So when I talk about, I wish I would have done this at a younger age or an earlier stage in my life, it is really odd at 50 to be reinventing myself like this. When, I was kind of hoping to be at a more like senior government executive level, moving up that sort of track or leading an organization, working with the government, working with USAID. And instead well, in some ways a new door opened, but really a trap door opened for me, and I've made the best out of it. So when I've said that I wish I would have done this earlier, some people have kind of said, well, you sound like an apologist for everything that's going on. And I'm not an apologist. I just, I've been actually somewhat successful. And so I try and encourage people that are in the same situation, that are laid off or really at the end of their rope right now, to be a little bit more optimistic about the opportunities that are out there. And so that's what I truly mean. I'm not like, oh, thank you, Mr. President, for destroying my agency and, putting me out of work because I wouldn't have found this opportunity. It's not really what it's about. It's about, I've been fortunate and I hope others can find similar paths. I prefer you not open a food truck in Maryland selling sausages, maybe something different, but I don't want any competition. I found a niche right now to exploit. But I guess that's sort of what I mean when this opportunity hit me. I'm going to regret saying this, but I found it easier than I thought to make money.
Oh, Kevin. You have no idea what you've just unleashed on yourself.
Well, it's because when you're in the government, you're in a completely different world. And it's not that you're sitting on top of government money, but I think there is a different level of entrepreneurialism, at least what I had at USAID. I was a program manager. I was responsible for a sector and I could dream up some really great programs. Here's a problem set in a country. How do we fix it? And I just love sitting in that sort of boardroom with, a very diverse set of staff, particularly our local staff, a better understanding the problem set, coming up with the solution. And so I think just from that alone, we had a very entrepreneurial approach to problems and then, I guess in this case, it's entrepreneurial approach to opportunities. And yeah, my first try at it, I've been somewhat successful. So it's still early, of course, but I had a very good October.
Awesome.
Now, at the risk of sounding like a total geezer here, considering my next birthday is going to be 70, at 50, you're a baby, my friend.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that then. So,
100%.
Because I do want to do this for the next 20 years. So I'm enjoying
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. And the cosmic energies will challenge you and keep you young. I believe they've done the same for me through my journey. So I got to ask, because, we're both business owners here. So how do people find you right now? So I can't get what I want until you open the butcher shop. But where can people find Kevin this week to get some awesome sausage?
Well, you are talking to me during a quiet period. So we just got done doing all the Oktoberfest and fall festivals. There'll be some winter festivals. I'm going to be at the Reston Winterfest, December, I think, 12th to 13th. There's a German Chris Krindle market in Alexandria at the Knights of Columbus. I think we're there on Saturday the 6th. I might have a few other opportunities in December, but honestly, I'm anticipating January and February are going to be quiet. And then I do actually regularly go to government office buildings. My people are people. I've been at NIH facilities, NASA, hoping to get one or two more. Because, these are large government buildings where the workers don't have meal options like they used to when there were full cafeterias, but they are going back to the office now. And so there is a rotation of food trucks. So I've been hitting these facilities, but it's been really slow the last month because I haven't gone to them. So
Gotcha.
Interesting, because not long ago, our crew was doing a Habitat for Humanity project. And my ops VP let slip. I'm the source of crazy ideas here, that I thought it'd be a really cool idea to sponsor a food truck to show up at federal agencies and give away food. So I'm glad to hear that you do like going to federal agencies. So may need a back channel with you on this. See if you'd be interested in co-branding, on behalf of Serving the Serve, bringing you the world's best sausage. Now I'm sure I'll get all kinds of letters from people telling me that hummus is healthier or something like that. And this I've learned from 3 years being plant-based. There is no way to cook a Brussels sprout that it tastes like pork rib.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I don't use any weird preservatives or chemicals. I do have to use a small level of nitrates in smoked sausages, but their nitrates are natural. You can actually get it in celery and celery root, so too. But yeah, I don't use any of those weird chemicals or hormones or even fillers. So
okay,
unless it's one of those English sausages. So
and also you've got we just talked about where you could be physically. Well, now how about tell people where they can find you virtually?
So
what's
virtually, I'm moving towards getting the brick and mortar. So fortunately, this first few months have been quite successful. And it looks like I'm hoping by February to be able to have a place in probably the Rockville area. There are no butchers between Germantown and Bethesda that are independent of grocery stores. There certainly aren't any that specialize in sausages in all of Montgomery County, but just within that circle between Bethesda and Germantown, kind of two extremes of the population center of the county, that's about 500,000 people. And, there is a lot of diversity in food in Montgomery County, which is amazing. I mean, from Ethiopian to, of course, Salvadoran, the best Chinese in the DMV, we all know is in Rockville. But like traditional, like sausages really aren't there. And so I think that's part of why I've gotten excitement around it. And,
sure.
And plus your
Germantown has an Oktoberfest.
Yeah, and we were probably the biggest vendor there. So, yeah.
Well, don't forget your cousins to the north here, because I'm up in Frederick County, and
I've been there a couple times. So,
absolutely. And
also, when I had a second food truck, so I've got big plans.
I sort of made the march north. I'm a Wheaton kid, so Rockville adjacent. My wife, Miss Mary, is from Rockville. She's a graduate of Rockville High. So that's literally my old stomping grounds. And of course, we're based there as well. So near and dear to our hearts. And how about your website?
So www.planbsausages.com. So, but that was original name. We are going to, we're under now mdbutcherbrat.com. And so I just haven't filled that page out. That's part of what I'm doing in November and December as we start shopping for that final location and getting the financing put together for it.
Are you guys on Facebook, Instagram, anything like that where folks can keep up with you on social media?
I am on Facebook and Instagram, and I need to open up our Blue Sky, so the alternate to Twitter. There's no way I'm going on Twitter or X, considering I was doged, so I will never open up on Twitter as long as it's owned by Elon Musk, who took the knife to USAID. Or put us in a wood chipper, as he claims.
Gotcha. Well, yep. There you go. Well, but folks can keep up with you on Facebook, and you do have a website as well. So if you're looking for Kevin, you can find him online. MD, you said it's MD Brat and Butcher?
MDBratButcher.com.
MDBratButcher.com. That's where you can find our friend Kevin.
Yeah, that's where I'm going to transition everything to.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, folks, hit him up. Make him really busy so that he has to open earlier than expected, so I can make sure that I get that smoked duck sausage for next Thanksgiving. Well, that's about all the time we have for today, folks, but have no fear. We will be back next week to bring the latest news and updates you need to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as Fed. Next week probably won't be cool. We won't be talking about sausages, but we will be talking about stuff that will help you.
Absolutely. Sausages are delicious, but financial planning will make sure that you have enough money to buy all the sausages that you want from Kevin.
Sausages that come from Kevin.
Right? Exactly. And so that you get all of those financial planning tips so that you can maximize your sausage spend in retirement. Make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast. 78% of folks who are watching us are actually not subscribed. So please, please, please take a moment, subscribe on our YouTube channel or on Spotify if you are an audio-only friend. And please do remember to share it with your friends and colleagues. Part of why we wanted to have Kevin on the show today is because we wanted to highlight the resilience and adaptability of feds to combat the narrative that we're seeing in 2025 that the civil servant is in some way, not somebody that wants to be engaged or hardworking or what have you. All of that is bunk. Serving Those Who Serve has worked with feds for 40 years. They are resilient. They are adaptable. They are, wanting to contribute.
Creative.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure that you send this episode out. I think it's a bright light. I think, Kevin, you are a spot of hope for folks in what's been a difficult year, honestly, in our community. So,
yep. And for more information on the topics covered in today's show and more, check out our blog at blog.stwserve.com. Subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving, so you get the latest shipped right to your inbox every single week. Sadly, sausage is not included.
Unfortunately, till we find a way to send them via email. And for those who want to dive even deeper into learning about your federal benefits and financial planning for feds, we encourage you to join us for one of our complimentary webinars. We've got some good ones coming up. I know this is a short turnaround time on this one, but it is important. FEHB is coming up on November 19th. Folks, we're in open season. We're here. We're in the thick of it from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Dan the Man is going to be hosting a special extended version of our FEHB webinar to help you understand everything that you need to know about your FEHB coverage. Okay, so make sure that you're there for that. If you're looking at that open enrollment stuff and just clicking all the same as last year, don't do that. Don't do that. Premiums are going up a lot this year. Please don't do that. Okay. Tax planning, we've got a session coming up on the 20th of November, right before we take a little bit of a hiatus for the holidays, That'll be from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., and that is with me. I will be hosting that one again, November 20th. Do join that because there's a lot of deadlines that come up. Even though you file your taxes in April, there's a lot of deadlines that come up prior to December 31st. So if you join me on November 20th, you'll know about them a month in advance, and maybe you can take some action on those items this year, okay? And of course, if you are looking for a more personal approach, we do work with folks one-on-one for financial planning and investment management. Feel free to hit us up at meetings at STWServe.com, and we'd be happy to talk with you about being a more long-term partner.
Absolutely. So wrapping it up, thanks for listening to Fed15. I'm Dan Sight.
And I'm Katelyn Murray.
And he's Kevin the Sausage Guy. And we will see you, well, Kevin won't, but Katelyn and I will be back next week.
See you there.